Good evening, darlings. So, the beautiful blossom Goskus has asked me to sort of talk about my deepest fears and to steer away from topics involving my son and his life choices, which is fine. I think we've covered that far too much here on this program. So, I don't have any really overwhelming fears at this point. I would say that most of my very large fears I've sort of gotten over as I've aged. When I was quite young, I saw my mother perish in quite a tragic way. And so for a while, I was very afraid of death and dying because, we're told as children that we're never going to die, and it's just sort of about being the best person that you can be. And so, although I did want to better myself, I had this sort of um, overpowering fear that death was just around the corner, waiting for me, as it had for my mother. And so that happened for quite a while, and then I sort of grew out of it. I grew up enough to know that that's not going to happen, and then of course I lost my father in quite a traumatic way, and he was by no means the only one who perished in that battle, and I think for a very long time I bore some mental scarring from um, just how vividly those memories stuck sort of within me, and so I sort of developed an irrational fear of being alone as a result more of somehow the dragon, although of course the worm had been disposed of, might come back, or there'd be some sort of revenge from its kin against my own. And so I worried very deeply about everyone that I cared about, sort of them being taken from me and me being left alone. And I think that perhaps that there's that sort of lingering feeling as part of with all this issues with my son. But I'm working through it, darling. It's a process, and I learned that's I sort of um, I worked on that very long and hard because, of course, logically it makes absolutely no sense to be afraid of something that has died, centuries ago, possibly coming back to attack you. Now, I have lost many things that are precious to me, and so I think it's sort of, although it's an irrational fear, it's a very understandable fear, and I think that's how most fears and phobias work. If you really think about it, you can sort of see that it doesn't really pose that great a threat to you, but that doesn't mean that in the moment, particularly, that those fears don't just grip something deep within you, some sort of string to your very being, and just yank on it and make you just feel it, no matter how silly or serious it could be. So, um, these days my fears are very petty things. Is there going to be enough wine to make it through the rest of the evening? Am I going to have to go on another one of these delegations? And I think probably my biggest fear right now is just being stuck in a room with one particular king for an unknown amount of time. It's probably the biggest fear I have, darling, which is not even a fear so much as just dread, which is something a little bit different. So, I hope that answers your question, darling, and thank you so much again for all of your requests. And ta-ta.